We have tons of news and rumors to talk about here today, one night before the NHL draft. Tonight we have a focus on teams like the Maple Leafs, the Rangers, the Oilers, the Hurricanes, the Jets, Sabres, Bruins, Sens, Flyers. We got news on just about everybody. Plus it was the NHL Awards ceremony tonight, all kinds of UFA talk, and all kinds of other news from around the NHL. Buckle up, we've got tons to talk about coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of news and rumors one day ahead of the NHL draft. All kinds of stuff being talked about today. We had a few trades already earlier today. In case you've been not paying attention, a couple of trades have already taken place. We saw the Flames trade on Andrew Mangiapane. That just went down a little while ago. He was traded to the Washington Capitals for a second-round pick. We saw the Kings and Sharks swap players earlier with Carl Grundstrom going from LA to San Jose for Kyle Burrows. And we saw the Sabres and Sharks also swap some draft picks with the Sharks moving up in the draft. They went from 14 up to 11 and also gave the Sabres an extra second-rounder. So we've already had a fair bit of activity today, and we've got lots more to come. The NHL Awards, to recap what happened there, that show just finished up here in the past hour as well. Nathan MacKinnon had a big night. He won the Hart Trophy and the Ted Lindsay Award. Quinn Hughes wins the Norris Trophy for top defenseman. Connor Hellebuyck gets the Vezina Trophy as well for the top goaltender. Obviously a huge night as well for Connor Bedard, who was named Rookie of the Year. Looking at the voting that was released after, Brock Faber was a fairly close second. It was a little closer than I expected. Luke Hughes, of course, in third place. But I don't know what it is with the NHL Awards. It's always cringe-worthy content. I don't understand the ability to not get a good host. They must skimp out, and as much as the league makes tons of money, they usually have a comedian who's really not good. It was, if you didn't watch it, you didn't miss anything. You could very well just follow along on social media or something to get the updates, because it was bad, and I don't know what they got to do. I really think they just need to ditch the comedy, just stick to the awards, and get a host that actually can be proper instead of these idiotic comedians who really are not good at their jobs. They're just not funny people, in my opinion. So anyways, so it was a horrible show as usual, but those are your award winners. Lots of other news to talk about, so let's dive into the other stuff here that's more fun to talk about. Hockey Canada has announced that they are going to name the first 6 players that will play for Team Canada at the upcoming Four Nation Face-Off International Tournament next February. So that news will come tomorrow on Friday pre-draft, so that'll be, I'm not sure the time they're going to announce it. I believe it's sometime in the afternoon. A couple of signings in Vancouver today, a couple of big ones as well. The first one that came out was a good one. The second one, I'm not quite so sure, but they've got to keep a couple of their own guys. And after they traded Ilya Mikheyev yesterday with the cap savings from moving on from him, a lot of speculation, are they doing this just to retain their own guys that might be able to walk if they can't afford to keep them, or are they making a bigger play here for Jake Guentzel? And it's kind of a bit of both. I don't know that they're going to be able to get Guentzel. They're still in on him, still trying, but he's still talking to Carolina, and there's lots of other teams in the mix there, but they did use some savings to bring back some of their own guys as well. So Dakota Joshua gets a 4-year contract to stay in Vancouver at $3.25 million. Dakota Joshua's 28 years old, had a career season, really kind of got everybody's attention, had a strong showing in the playoffs as well, put up 18 goals and 32 points last year. $3.25 million for what he brought last year. It's certainly, I think, more than fair. It was predicted on the open market he was probably going to get closer to 4. I think there were teams prepared to offer like a 4x4 or even slightly above that if he hit the market and was available as a free agent. So it's a real good signing by Vancouver. I'm sure Rick Tocchet quite happy about that. I know he really appreciates his game. And they're bringing back defenseman Tyler Myers, which we had heard about for some time. I know Elliot Friedman and Rick Dhaliwal, for that matter, a lot about the fact that Myers was likely coming back, but it was going to be a lot cheaper than his current contract. They obviously really like his size and didn't want to, if they lose Myers and Zadorov on the back end, that was going to be too much grit, too much size, that they just didn't want to do that, which I understood. And I was like, okay, if Myers is going to be kind of relegated to be more of a third pair defenseman, cut back his minutes, so you're going to obviously cut back and potential mistakes. You can get the matchups better. That would be better suited for him. He gets a 3-year extension at $3 million. To me, just to use a baseball term, to me, this is an unforced error. I don't mind them re-signing Myers. I don't mind him coming back. He's going to be 35 years old next year. You're getting him 3 years, and at $3 million, to me, he's a third-pair defenseman, and you don't pay third-pair defensemen that kind of money. I think this should have been closer to maybe $2 million at most, maybe even less than that. But if you can get a really good third pair D at under $2 million, you're doing good. I mean, I know in his case with his level of experience that probably wouldn't happen. But if they could have got him around 2 to 2.25, would have been better. To me, this is about $700,000-$800,000 of cap space tied up. And even the other thing is, I honestly don't know if I would have done 3 years for somebody who's going to be 35. I mean, this past year was probably his best year in Vancouver. I think it's probably fair to say on that long-term contract he signed. Like, there was a halfway through this contract, fans were screaming for him to be gone because he was not living up to the money. It was making a lot of mistakes and just wasn't strong enough. Didn't really, follow through on what the price tag that came with him. But he is like 6'8". He's a huge guy. Finally, like I said, he found more of a role this year. I get it. I don't completely disagree with them bringing him back, but 3 times 3, I'm thinking like 2 times 2.25 or something like that would have been a lot better for me. I just think they overshot their payroll here, and every penny counts when you're trying to build a contender. I don't like it. I'm sure there's going to be some Canucks fans that are fine with it. Some are going to be probably not. I think it's too much. Bringing them back, fine, but that's a year too long, and about $1 million or close to it, too much. But that's my take. The Ottawa Senators today also continued picking away their RFAs, most of which have been, I guess you could say AHL players or guys that are, tweeners that go up and down between the two NHL, AHL clubs. But Matthew Highmore has got a fair bit of experience, has been a good pro for them. He gets a very lucrative two-way deal. It's a one-year contract, two-way, $775 at the NHL, about $400K at the American Hockey League. He's been a real good leader, good pro for them in Belleville, so he gets some NHL time as well. So to me, this is a good contract to keep their depth up for the minor league especially. The Edmonton Oilers today finally put out a statement confirming what we had heard in the last couple of days about the departure of GM Ken Holland. Jeff Jackson, the CEO, confirmed that Holland and the Oilers have mutually agreed that his contract would not be extended and that it'll be expiring here on June 30th, and he's not going to be returning to the Edmonton Oilers. He will not be at the NHL draft with them this weekend, and his time with Edmonton essentially has come to an end, as we talked about in the past couple of days. For the time being, Jeff Jackson, the CEO, essentially, along with the assistant GMs, will be kind of assuming his duties and being the role of GM, but Jackson did say in the statement that he does not intend to be the GM himself, and he does not want to do it for too long a period of time, but at the same time they want to get it right and make sure they pick the right candidate and the right hire here, so they will take their time, not rush, and get this in order as soon as they can. I know one name that's been out there as potential candidate is Mark Hunter, so we'll see. No guarantee that it's him, but obviously they will be looking for somebody to play that role. But I think with the structure they have there in place, I do kind of think Jeff Jackson's going to have your final say on some of the big issues that a GM would handle. So it's going to have a little bit of a different structure than some teams, for sure. The St. Louis Blues today brought in veteran coach Claude Julien. That was a surprise hire. He's been named an assistant coach with the Blues. They've also promoted Steve Ott, who's been a long-time assistant with the Blues, to be the associate coach. So that's a bit of a promotion for him. Of course, we know that when Craig Berube was hired in Toronto, there was some interest to bring in some of his former Blues coaching mates there. Obviously, bringing in Claude Julien is a great way for Drew Bannister, the current head coach, to really rely on somebody with a ton of experience to help him. Obviously, Ott, as the associate coach, theoretically is next in line, but having somebody of Julian's caliber on hand in case things go for a loop here is not bad either. I suspect Julien has been trying to get back into the NHL coaching circle as a head coach, and I'm a little bit surprised he took an assistant coaching role, but this will not certainly hurt his case to eventually get another head coaching gig should he want to pursue that, which I assume he will. Otherwise, he wouldn't be working as an assistant. We did get confirmation today that the Dallas Stars have bought out the final year of defenseman Ryan Suter's contract. That saves them $2.8 million for the salary cap for the coming season. Of course, they'll have an extra year tacked on at 1.4 because it's 2/3 of the remaining money divided by twice the period of time. Ryan Suter, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that makes him the first ever player to be bought out by two separate teams. So he's going to be paid by the Dallas Stars as well as Minnesota to not play for either team for the next couple of years. The time in Minnesota, I can't remember how many years is left on that one, but it still has some time. And then, of course, he'll have 2 years of Dallas. It's believed he wants to continue playing. I don't know. I mean, he's certainly taken a step back. He's declined. Maybe a 1-year deal at a cheap contract, maybe. There apparently is interest. I think there will be teams that probably give him a shot, like I said, on a 1-year cheap deal. But I would suspect what his option is going to be, but we will see. I know one rumor regarding a contract extension is if the Florida Panthers appear to be close to extending sniper Carter Verhaeghe. Verhaeghe has been a real nice find for them in Florida. Bill Zito brought him in after he had played with Tampa. One of those value findings. He got him on a cheap contract, and he's done nothing but score big goals for them ever since. Put up over 70 points this year. He's going to be, looks to be like a consistent 35, 40 goal man, and will be a real good fit there long term. The rumored contract is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 6-year deal is what's expected, around $8 to $8.5 million. So we'll see what the final numbers work out to be, but it's somewhere in that range. I would suspect around July 1 or thereabouts shortly after will be something that we kind of learn on that one. Some players that are not going to be returning to their team, we get some updates on that front. The Seattle Kraken today confirmed that forward Kyler Yamamoto is free to speak to other teams. He's likely not going to be back with Seattle. The Montreal Canadiens today confirmed they're not going to give a qualifying offer to pending restricted free agent Jesse Yellinen. Although they didn't completely rule out that he's going to be gone for sure. He's not going to be given a qualifying offer, but once he has a chance to look at the free agent market, they would maybe consider bringing him back as a UFA at a cheaper value than what his qualifying offer would have been. So it's still possible he returns, but unlikely at this point, but you never know sometimes. Apparently the Ottawa Senators are also trying to move defenseman Erik Brannstrom. He may not get a qualifying offer if he's not moved before the June 30th deadline for the qualifying offers to be issued. They're due to pay him, I think it's $2.1 million, and with their cap situation and where they see him fit, he had a nice season in Ottawa, certainly proved that he could defend at the NHL level. They just really need to change the makeup of their back end, which seems to be the bigger focus here. It's not that he can't play or anything like that, but they don't want to get tied and committed to a contract for somebody they'd prefer to move. So we'll see if they can get that worked out. Be interesting to see if he does get a qualifying offer or not. It's not a given he won't, but they're leaning towards not if they can't trade him. In Washington, it's, I believe, based on comments from GM Brian McClellan, that Max Pacioretty and Nikolai Aube-Kubel will not be returning as well. And with the addition of Andrew Mangiapane that was acquired tonight via trade, I think that probably tells us there's a good chance TJ Oshie is not going to play next year, which would be the final year of his contract. McClellan did confirm, though, that Oshie would only play if he could get enough medical advice to fix his back, which they kind of seems unlikely. But we'll see. It's not a completely guaranteed thing. He said Oshie probably wouldn't have a decision until the end of summer, nearing the time of around training camp. It's believed Jake DeBrusk will be leaving Boston as well, according to Don Sweeney. He says they've had no productive talks on a new contract, so everything's quiet between those two sides. It's believed he's got interest from a variety of teams on the open market, so we'll see where he ends up. Both teams in his home province of Alberta, Edmonton and Calgary, believed to be in the mix, as well as a bunch of others, so he won't have any shortage of options. I'll be curious to see where he eventually ends up here. In Toronto, a bunch of rumors regarding them, regarding contracts and free agency. It sounds like Tyler Bertuzzi's likely going to hit the market. At least that was the reports we heard out of some reporters today, but I know Chris Johnson said it's not a case of the door being closed. Bertuzzi still seems willing to work with the Leafs on both the term side and the money side, but it sounds like he is going to kind of test the market just to see what else is out there. But it's still, a case where depending on what is out there, could return to Toronto. NHL reporters are having a more difficult time kind of reading the situation with Max Domi. Elliot Friedman said he thinks to get Domi signed, the Leafs are going to probably need to offer around a 4x4 type of deal, but it's unclear where things stand with the negotiations right now. It's possible he gets signed. It's also possible he hits the market. There's no guarantee the Leafs bring either guy back. They're interested in both, but it really boils down to negotiations. The Leafs are also trying to move Timothy Liljegren. They would rather trade him rather than deal with a potential arbitration case. So they'd like to get that done. Same sort of scenario as Ottawa and Brantstrom. They just don't want to get into a contract where they're not going to be happy and they don't want to overpay. So they're trying to get a deal done instead. So we'll see what happens there with Liljegren. I would think the odds of him being moved are pretty good. It's believed the Maple Leafs are going to target some goaltenders in the UFA market that have been preliminary, like backups or tandem goalies. So looking at Laurent Brossoit or Anthony Stolarz, they appear to be some of their top targets. Chris Tanev, of course, defenseman out of Dallas, who the Dallas Stars are very interested in keeping. No guarantee he makes it to market, but there will be a long list of teams, as I've said before, in on Tanev. But there's a lot of Leaf reporters and Toronto media suggesting that he would be their absolute top target. And if he does make it to the market and can talk to the Leafs, a lot of them think that Brad Treliving, if there is a player out there that he'd be willing to go longer term or more money than he normally would to bring him in, that Tanev would be the guy. So we'll see. But again, we don't know if he's making it there. Dallas is pushing hard, especially after the Suter buyout, to keep his services down there, but we don't know yet. Of course, it's looking like the Buffalo Sabres are not going to have Jeff Skinner next year. One way or another, looks like he's going to be gone. They are trying to work with him about waiving his no-move clause to be traded. We haven't really heard where he would go. I would suspect it'd be one of the rebuilding teams with lots of cap space, whether it be San Jose, Chicago, or one of those lower-ranking teams that would have the ability to do this with some sort of a sweetener. Maybe Buffalo retains some money to make it a little bit easier. Hard to say, but it's believed that if he won't waive his no-move clause, that they're going to do a buyout. And, of course, the buyout window opened today. It closes June 30th, so we will see what the Sabres decide to do. But one way or another, it's believed that Skinner won't be back with them next year. A couple of teams that kind of make sense that are kind of monitoring the situation, if you will, would be Detroit and Toronto, places that are not far from Buffalo in the same division, still close to home for Skinner. They could get him signed for, I would think for at least probably like a Matt Duchene type of deal, like what he did with the Dallas Stars last year. Probably a 1-year deal at a lot cheaper since he's going to get paid from the buyout as well. And then obviously he can kind of reestablish himself, get a fresh start, and see what happens. But for the most part in his career, he's had some down seasons. But if you look at the whole body of work, he got into the NHL at a really young age, right after being drafted at 18 years of age. Terrific skater, still skates extremely well. And really, he could be, if you look back in the last 10 plus years, one of the more consistent scorers if you average everything out. But it seems like when he's good, he's really good. But when he has a down year, it seems to be really down. So be interesting to see what happens with Skinner. The good news is, for me at least, I know I'm sure how everybody else feels, but some of those skits they were doing with him in Buffalo, I thought they were completely cringe. So thankfully we won't need to see those anymore. At least that's how I feel about that. The Winnipeg Jets, another team to very much watch here in the next couple of days, especially at the draft tomorrow. It's believed that they're really close. They might even have a couple of sort of deals in their pocket that can kind of make a call and finish here if the right players are available on the draft board. But Rutger McGroarty is believed to be on the move from the Winnipeg Jets. Of course, the top prospect doesn't want to sign there anymore, and they are going to accommodate that. It's just a matter of what they get back. There's other teams that could offer their first round pick this year. Maybe the Jets get another pick that way, or maybe they offer another solid young player that might be a comparable player in that sense. We've heard teams like Columbus and the New York Islanders being some of the main teams in the mix there. There is a connection between Columbus and Winnipeg that former Winnipeg Jet Patrick Laine is an interesting piece. We've heard Winnipeg media, Mike McIntyre mentioned it in an interview, saying wouldn't be completely crazy to have a Laine return to Winnipeg. Apparently Laine and how he feels about the Jets and everything, I think would be open to it. I think some of the issues he had when he was there before are would not be the case anymore. The locker room has changed, the leadership has changed, and it's believed that's something that could actually happen. They could get Laine back. Imagine they traded Laine for Dubois. They traded Dubois to LA, completely fleeced them, got a massive return, and now they could get Laine back for a prospect that doesn't want to play there. Kind of a weird way to go things full circle there, but I mean, not that McGroarty wouldn't be a good player as well, but just kind of an interesting turn of events. Of course, the Islanders are another team, like I said, I would watch as well. If they made a deal, I would suggest that they'd probably be looking for a combo of McGroarty and Nikolai Ehlers, who's another player that's very much in play. They could certainly use both of these guys. They could certainly have them both on the NHL roster next year. The only problem is I don't know what they would offer as a package to get the deal done. Their first round pick this year, which is number 20 right now, that would almost definitely have to be in there. I think defenseman Ryan Pulock would have to be in there. Maybe an Oliver Wahlstrom, and just it seems like they're kind of giving away some assets that, in the case like a Wahlstrom, of guys they don't really see fit in there anymore. So I don't know if that's really enough. Is that really fair? I'm not so sure it is. So we'll have to see where things go, but at the end of the day, there's those among other teams that are interested. We're still hearing a few teams on Marty Necas, Nashville, New Jersey, the latest teams, to some degree Montreal. So we'll see where Necas goes. We haven't heard a lot more intel there. Just that a lot of discussions continue. I know in Carolina, they're very much trying to keep Jake Gensel, so we'll see what happens. As of yesterday, I was convinced he was probably gone, and now we're hearing that they've kind of been pushing and reconnecting and increasing their offer, and so we'll see. I know the Maple Leafs, I know there's still some reporters, including Frank Saravalli, that are 100% convinced, and they're even more convinced now after listening to Brad Treliving's pre-draft media availability today that they are indeed trying to pursue a Mitch Marner trade. Now, depending on who you talk to, some think it's happening, some don't think it is. Some are convinced it has to happen, but it may not be in the works just yet. I honestly don't think that we're going to hear a lot. I think they're going to do really well or try to keep it quiet. They're not going to go to Marner to ask him to waive until they have a deal in place that they really like. There's a number of teams out there that we've talked about in the last number of weeks that do make sense and could make a real legitimate, compelling offer. Like I think Vegas, I think Utah. There's definitely others as well. Vegas, to me, just seems to always get the big names that are out there in the trade market. And I honestly think, because we've heard Kevin Weeks make mention that take a look at the Vegas goalies lately. Like they're very much on the market, that they're likely going to move either Aiden Hill or Logan Thompson. They're trying to sign Jonathan Marchessault as well. They need cap space, but if they wanted to include, let's say, Aiden Hill and Shea Weber, for example, to Toronto, those two contracts alone would cover Marner's, or pretty close to it. Now, it would probably have to be a third piece. I think it would take Hill, Theodore, and I don't know, maybe like Nikolai Waugh or something like that. That to me would be a great deal for both sides. The Leafs get a goaltender, they get a real solid puck-moving defenseman that can play in their top four, log big minutes, and they get a real good middle six center who's really good in the penalty kill. I don't know. I think there's deals out there if they really want to get it done. So we will see. But Treliving's comments today made a lot of people convinced that they are working on it. Like when he was asked about it, he said Marner's a real good player. There's going to be rumors today. He said there's going to be rumors tomorrow, different stories out there. But he never came out and said, like, we're absolutely not doing that, or, haven't been having any trade talks around them. Not going to ask them to waive. Like, they didn't deny anything, which is kind of what people were looking for. And I've said before, even if they do deny things, you still can't really put a lot of stock into it, because they're not going to come out and publicly tell you their plans. They'll lose all their leverage in their negotiations. So you got to be careful with that. So I don't know. I mean, it just the Treliving comments are just kind of set people off. So we'll see. I know in Edmonton, another couple of things popping up today for them. It's expected that Jack Campbell will get bought out. I'm surprised we didn't see that on the first day of the buyout window today, but I would suspect tomorrow, the next day, that's likely going to happen. And it's believed as well that they are trying to find some more cap space, and that Cody Ceci could be a name that you see out there to move his contract. and try to create more room. Of course, we saw Philip Broberg really take an expanded role later on in the playoffs, so he's probably going to have a top 4 spot next year. Of course, you got Bouchard, Ekholm. Nurse kind of has to be based on what he gets paid. You ain't, as much as they should try to move Darnell Nurse. Good luck with that. So guys like Kulak and CC are the ones that you're kind of have only potential to really free up some money. Not clear if they're going to bring back Vinny Desharnais or if he'll be on the move through free agency either. So the Oilers definitely have some interesting decisions to make there as well. And in New York, we did see reports of the Rangers that they have indeed asked Jacob Trouba for his updated teams for his no-trade list, because it does reset coming up here for July 1, I believe. But at the same time, that's not a given or a reason to think for sure that they're trying to move him. There is belief that they are, and that in a perfect world, they'd like to find a new home for him. I've seen some connections about Trouba in Detroit. I can't say that there's anything to that. As much as you don't like Trouba, a lot of people think he's overpaid at $8 million. Let's say the Rangers, because there's only a couple of years left on that term. What if they eat a couple $1 million? I mean, that would be better than trying to buy him out or something. If they retain a couple million, knock it down to $6, well, that's suddenly not so bad. He can still give you top 4 minutes. At the same time, like if you give him the right role and some better matchups by playing him in the lineup exactly where you think he's best suited, which is not top pair, then maybe he can perform better. Changing up the dynamic of the Rangers blue line appears to be something Chris Drury's very interested in doing. So we'll see. I can't say for sure Trouba ends up in Detroit, but he is a Michigan guy. We know he wanted to go to New York. A lot of that was not only for his own preference, but for his spouse as well. So I don't know what happens with Trouba, but there's a lot of smoke saying that they are trying to move him. They got his updated list, but that's part of the formality of his contract. I don't know that we can really say that's adding any kind of fuel to the fire here, but it's also believed that even though they signed him, that I've heard the word aggressively shopping Capo Caco. He's on a 1-year deal. It's over $2 million. Former number 2 overall pick. I don't think the price tag would be overly huge, so I do wonder if it might not be that hard to find a taker for him. Maybe one of the teams in the second half or the first round, maybe they offer up a first round pick and the Rangers take it. You never know. Hard to say. But there's lots going on here today. There's going to be lots going on tomorrow, so stay tuned. All kinds of stuff going to be coming to the channel here. Lots of content. Tomorrow night's a draft, free agency on Monday coming up, so there's going to be all kinds of trades, lots of speculation on what's going to happen with player movement and everything. So stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around so you don't miss anything, and I'll catch you next time.